Hello and welcome to Ignore the Noise and Move Forward by Anne Emanuel. For years I found myself rereading my life stories and only recently realized how my life experiences and the people I've met along the way changed my life. All of my stories are short, and at the end of every blog story, I give you ideas on how you can begin writing your life stories.
Last fall, I met a young man who quite obviously had great wisdom and what I call discernment. I asked him how he came to see life so clearly. I think my question took him by surprise. I looked into his eyes and could see such a fine young man. He answered with about 9 or 10 words that summed it up for me. He learned the value of hard work at a very young age. He watched his family members work extremely hard for everything they had and never stopped. He was fortunate to have generational influence. Parents and grandparents he observed at a young age, and that's how he came to have such great wisdom. I would add that he has discernment, the ability to see the truth, which is a spiritual gift. As a teenager, I worked in a German deli and worked with a woman we will call Jo. She was so much fun and really good to talk with, and she loved to laugh. She shared a few of her life experiences during World War II. One of her stories has stayed in my mind for all these years. Because I'm visual, this has played out in my mind for many years. I am forever grateful for the stories shared with me as a young teenager. One day I must have asked her about World War II, and in order to tell me the story that she wanted to share, we had to go to a part of the deli where no one could hear her talking. It was clear that after all these years, she could not tell the story in front of the other European women for fear of retaliation of some sort. The story was of a village in Ukraine. When the German soldiers came in, they rounded up all the Jewish families. One by one, the community watched as each person was forced to walk to the middle of the plank where they were shot and fell into a pit. A young girl, about 12 years old, ran away from the German soldiers, only to be captured and sent back to walk the plank. She was shot and her body falling into the pit to her death. Did she die immediately? Or did she linger in the pit full of her family and friends? She had the survivor in her, but without a way to survive. Think about the fathers who were unable to protect their families and the mothers living their last moments in horror. And just think, this played out over and over again. Did they even know that this would eventually happen? Or did it come as a total surprise? Did some of them have premonitions? Or did they think this could never happen to me? Why couldn't they protect themselves? Ask yourself that question. And the large hole, I only learned over the last few years. The Jews were forced to dig their own burial pit. Ever hear of a battle in Europe during this time period where a community was prepared for the German soldiers to defend against such evil? Neither have I. Ask yourself why. In the last few weeks, I've heard news commentators stating that people are getting tired of hearing World War II and Holocaust stories. It's getting old. In reality, it's not even a lifetime away, and we are happy to sweep it under the rug. Might there be a reason? My greatest fear is that many of us have already forgotten 911. Might we have a short attention span? As the people who lived through World War II pass, even with audio and video recordings of their stories, our children, grandchildren, and descendants will not be taught how to recognize the broad brush of hatred. It's happening today. Can you recognize it? When the young no longer know what the numbers on the arm mean or can name a concentration camp, history will repeat itself. When they no longer ask questions or are allowed to challenge the leadership or are prepared to protect their families, you can bet those in power will take care of you. Notice how you no longer hear about the young people in Hong Kong who oppose their government? Neatly tucked away, and no one cares. It should be easy to understand why so many turn their heads to the massacres in Europe. With censorship in the electronic world, in a few short minutes, history is removed from search engines, video platforms like YouTube, and so on. No need to burn books. In the electronic world, it's easily removed and forgotten. When I was young, I fantasized, what if there was a war and nobody came? As an adult, I realized that is a fantasy. What I thought should happen is those at the top of each opposing government or regime, not those at the bottom, should go to war. Let's see what they're made of. I think we know what would happen. They are all wimps. There is always an agenda, and it's always tied to money and power. I saw a church sign last week. Jesus told us to love. Jesus also told us to help ourselves. But how many people even care about what Jesus had to say? Today we are too smart to believe in a higher power called God and a Son of God by the name of Jesus Christ. When the broad brush of hatred identifies a group, such as Jews, any race, any religion, any social class, any occupation, and the masses cannot see, they are being taught to hate. They are being taught to see other human beings as less than human or dispendable. We are in trouble. Today we believe what we are told without questioning the data. We are not told how to think, but what to think. History, like life experience, is crucial because it helps us to identify impending danger. Survival instincts should kick in. When we become a people who believe everything we read, we believe everything we see or hear from the media, again, we are in trouble. We must listen carefully and question everything. Start questioning. Play the devil's advocate and see how long you're allowed to ask questions. And pray for the gift of discernment.
The purpose of my stories is to encourage you to write about your life, and you will be amazed at your personal growth. You know how when you're talking with someone and they're telling you their experience, and while they're telling you their life experience, a thought comes into your mind, you can relate, you have a story to share too. Begin at that point and start writing. Thank you for listening to Anne Emanuel. Ignore the noise and move forward. If you enjoyed my story, check out anneemanuel.com. Download the writing tips or sign up for new stories. Feel free to comment on this podcast. You can also follow or connect on social media. Thank you.